For as long as I've been playing rhythm games, I still find myself every few years experimenting with different scroll speeds, albeit very small adjustments. It's probably the most important aspect of your play that you should optimize if you want to read your game as comfortably as possible. However, I've noticed over the years that people will end up asking questions like, how do I find my scroll speed, or what's the best scroll speed to use? This video will tackle how scroll speed works, how to find your scroll speed, and a couple fallacies regarding it. I understand that this video won't be fully applicable to games where you have to account for songs changing BPM, but hopefully you will still be able to take something out of this video overall. If you remember your time as a beginner, or if you're just starting now, you will realize over a short period of time that the notes might feel too cluttered or scroll up too slow. This is because you're developing basic fundamentals and are able to focus less on the concept of the rhythm game at hand and more towards what is specifically happening on the screen. This in turn makes you realize that turning up your scroll speed resolves this issue. This is a very natural and common practice among 99.99% of players, and levels off for everyone at whatever scroll speed is the fastest yet most comfortable they can read at. Of course, this is the ideal scenario, but it's never that simple for all players, unfortunately. So how does a player get to the perfect scroll speed? Well, to start off, there is no perfect scroll speed to use that applies to every player. You are the judge of what a perfect scroll speed is. Just about every player in any rhythm game that has the option will have different scroll speed setups, as it simply just varies between players. Scroll speed is also not a determinant of difficulty, as long as it's not so egregiously fast or slow that it can become part of the chart's difficulty, commonly found in games like TDR, Osamania, Taiko no Tatsujin, etc. Finding your scroll speed as a beginning player can be a very difficult process as you get better and better at the game. And while I don't have the end-all be-all solution to figuring out your personal preferences, I'm going to do my best to mitigate the difficulties by pointing out some very brief yet useful tips and going over some things to avoid when adjusting scroll speed. To exemplify, I'm going to use Etienne since that's the game I'm simply familiar with the most. When you're adjusting your scroll speed, your goal is to find a speed in which you can read everything proficiently, whether it's fast material, technical material, and even accuracy-related material. Read too fast and you'll fall behind, which can also lead to unnecessary amounts of tensing for hyper-focusing on your fast scroll speed. Read too slow and everything becomes too cluttered and you'll most likely be rushing everything. Try assessing whether or not you feel like you're consistently struggling to keep up or finding yourself having trouble processing a majority of patterns. Keep in mind that both of these could be the result of simply playing something too far out of your range, so be sure to test this out on files that aren't too hard, yet aren't too easy either. If possible, you can also try analyzing replays by recording them yourself, or by using in-game post-song statistics to gauge how early or late you're hitting if you feel like you need more data. Again, to prevent any further confusion, make sure your offset is reasonably set so this method is as accurately performed as possible. If your game allows you to change the size of the notes, I would highly suggest experimenting with this a bit. I find myself using smaller notes because they're more in my field of vision and just look nicer overall, but there are top players and players in general that like using bigger notes that allow them to read better too. It's all entirely preference, just like scroll speed, so don't be afraid to experiment with varying note sizes. The biggest mistakes I've seen with scroll speed over the years is that players will change their scroll speeds way too often and or will increase their scroll speed a decent percentage to read certain sections or entire songs better. I'm not referring to Xmod or gimmick charts either, we're still sticking to static scroll speeds. There are very few players who have made this work in the past, but I can assure you it is a fundamentally flawed practice to do this. Slowing down idle sections to understand them is fine in moderation, but other than that, it's much more efficient and logical to learn how to read patterns with your regular scroll speed, as muscle memory is the #1 aspect of rhythm games. If you don't allow yourself to process every pattern at the same speed, then you'll throw your reading all out of whack and you'll become increasingly reliant on an inconsistent strategy as long as you continue to do so. A couple % increase or decrease in your scroll speed is fine if you're just experimenting, but harsher deviations and commitment to said deviations can cause major problems down the line. To summarize, remember that there is no such thing as an objectively good scroll speed. Your scroll speed will likely increase over time if you're a starting player and will eventually level out. This leveling out will require you to assess if everything feels too cluttered or if it feels too fast and you're falling behind. Don't use scroll speed as a method for reading things better unless it's a gimmick chart or SV map or anything of that kind. And lastly, try your best not to experiment too much with different scroll speeds and to also not deviate any more than a couple % if you do want to experiment. overall scroll speed is by far one of the most important aspects of rhythm games, and it should be treated delicately so you can get the best experience out of your respective game. I hope this lesson serves you all well, and I wish you all the best of luck in making your game as comfortable to read as possible. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting the channel, and if you'd like to see more rhythm gaming content like this, feel free to check out my Patreon, drop us up if you're new here, and check out my other links below. I'll see you on whatever video I upload next, and take care.